What are the 4 magic pillars of sales success? Find out on today's episode of the Freedom Club Podcast.
Welcome to the Freedom Club Podcast, where we discover the fight for freedom, fulfillment, passion, and purpose. Your host is Curt Gallup certified strengths coach, an agency founder who is dedicated to coaching individuals seeking to level up their life and their businesses. The Freedom Club is about unlocking your talents, turning them into strengths, and crushing your objectives. You can learn more at curtmercadante.com. Welcome to the Freedom Club.
And happy hump day, everyone. This is the Freedom Club Podcast. I am your very grateful host, Curt Mercadante, and I am grateful that you are here, whether this is your first time listening or your 110th time listening. Thank you so much for being here, whatever country you're in. Every time I look at the stats, I'm just blown away by the amount of people we have across the globe listening today. So thank you so much for listening. We keep growing month after month, week after week. It's very fulfilling for me to be able to help you fight for a life of freedom and fulfillment. And of course, this podcast is free. I don't charge you anything. We don't have an endless array of advertisers, although if you'd like to advertise, please give me a call. So what's really like currency to us is if you go and leave us a positive rating and review on iTunes, on Google Play. You know, you can find us, by the way, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. And so if you would leave us a positive rating or review, it would mean the world to me, and it allows us to continue to reach that global audience with our message of freedom and fulfillment. And speaking of freedom, you know, a lot of people, they're starting out and they've built their own business. They've become entrepreneurs because they want that sense of entrepreneurial freedom. But one challenge I often find is a fear of sales. I've had clients who they've had a dream for a long time to start their own company. They know that's what's going to fill them with fulfillment. But that fear of sales is holding them back. It absolutely paralyzes them. And on today's episode, I have a great interview with Ali Mirza. He's president of Rose Garden Consulting in Atlanta, Georgia. This dude was once the top salesman in the country, going door to door selling life insurance. Man, I can't even imagine doing that. But he did it. He's now had Rose Garden Consulting. They're about to have their seven-year anniversary. And Ali knows a thing or two about sales. He helps companies build out their sales teams. And on today's episode, he shares with us the 4 magic pillars of sales. So you're really going to love this interview. And without further delay, here is my interview with Ali Mirza of Rose Garden Consulting. Well, Ali, thank you so much for being here on the Freedom Club Podcast. So great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, Ali and I met on just like a recent guest we had, a few recent guests on the 10X Factory, kind of online accelerator, online mastermind. I don't know exactly how you classify it. And Ali's great. Ali's a sales expert. His LinkedIn profile says he helps businesses systematize their sales process and create peace of mind with consistent cash flow. And it's all about sales, right? You don't have a business without sales.
No, man, that's, I really believe business and sales, you know, some level of, you know, synonymous, those two words should be, I believe.
It's funny how there's a lot of people out there who are adamant. They don't admit it, but they think an idea equals a business. And it's like, well, no, paying clients equal a business, right?
Well, exactly. An idea is just that. It's an idea, right? And you got to turn it into money. That's when it becomes a business, right?
Absolutely. And so I want to get into more about sales, what you do. But the first question I always ask all my guests is the question, what does the word freedom mean to you? So I pose that question to you.
What does the word freedom mean to me? Here's what freedom means to me. Friday afternoon, I could do whatever I want. Tuesday afternoon, I could do whatever I want. Monday morning, I can do whatever I want. Freedom to me really is, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have this in common, is we are control freaks. A lot of us are, and a lot of us also are not good at being told what to do. So entrepreneurship really is a path to freedom for most people. And what unfortunately we end up doing half the time is creating a job for ourselves, and restricting ourselves, and kind of creating the very hell that we tried to escape.
Right.
But in a nutshell, to me, freedom, it really is just the ability to do whatever I want. So that that's money plus power equates to freedom for me. That's what it boils down to.
Awesome. And it's interesting that you said that often entrepreneurs, they try to escape to create freedom, but often I always say that I created, for the first 5 years after I left my 9 to 5, I built a prison instead of a business, which is exactly the opposite way of where I wanted to go.
It's weird. We give ourselves this illusion of freedom, right? Because there's nobody else telling us what has to be done, in terms of a boss or a kind of a traditional boss. We think, oh shit, we've got, but how much can I swear? Minimal, or just don't?
Go for it. Go for it as much as you want. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So a lot of, you got to ask, right? So a lot of times what ends up happening is we think that because we don't have like a CEO or a president above us, we think that then that's what gives us this illusion of control and freedom. But what ends up happening is, before, in your 9 to 5, you were able to, at Friday afternoon, turn it off. As much as you hated your job, you were able to turn it off. And that's where Sunday night dread came, because now you got to go in for Monday morning. But at least, the Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday during the day, you had your freedom. As an entrepreneur, you don't even have that anymore, right? Because everything carries over, and, all day. We're recording this on a Monday. I mean, all day yesterday, I was building out reports for a bunch of my clients, right? And this is our busy time of the year. So, Sunday afternoon, I'm sitting there working. I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't do anything else. But unfortunately, a lot of times we just, create this job, but we have this desire, and rightfully so, we have this long-term vision of eventually we put in the work now, we'll get to somewhere where we do have freedom. Unfortunately, for many of us, we just never hit that.
Yeah. And there's a difference between, there's sometimes where I'll have an idea and I'll run up into my office, or I'll grab my laptop and I'll do it. Sometimes I don't feel like that is work, versus I think there's a feeling of compulsion versus I just want to do this. I really want to do this. Right. And as an entrepreneur, that's the key. I think there's some people who they get clients that they don't want or they shouldn't do. They don't build parameters with their clients on the front end. They answer calls at 11 p.m. And I often say clients can be like pets, right? If you answer the call at 11 p.m., it's very Pavlovian. They're going to call you at 11 p.m. If you stop answering it at 5, most of them are going to be cool with that. And if they're not, maybe they're not the type of client you want.
Right. Yeah. And it's sometimes we get into this, it's two things I think that creates that. And I'll admit it, I'm the worst. A lot of times with my existing clients, I prefer to talk to them on the weekends, because I'm just like, and this is very bad, but I'm just like, well, you already paid me, so I'm not making any more money off you. So I don't want to spend business hours on you. Let me spend weekends and evenings on you, and spend those, during 9 to 5 actually making money, which is the wrong way of looking at it, but whatever. But it's this, we tell ourselves two things, right? Number one, it's like, well, I'm excited, I want to, but then number two, well, they're going to be offended or they're not going to be happy. And to your point, like what you just said, no, they have certain expectations during business hours, not necessarily off hours. And if we allow them to, that's, you were in the agency world, scope creep. And if you don't nip that in the bud, I mean, it's, the scope creep is more than just on the scope on the proposal. It's an everyday life.
Yeah. And if you don't do it, if you don't nip that in the bud from the very beginning,
it's
hard to do it, to change, because,
so that's when you have to like make the excuse, like, oh yeah, my mother-in-law died, or my, this happened and that, my world has changed. Right. It's just like, why? Well, just do it right from the beginning. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find a lot of younger entrepreneurs don't get that yet. And it's like, they're like, no, I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's like, okay, wait a few years. And I mean, there's a difference between you choose and on taking certain calls during a certain time, but then there's some, it's like, I'll sleep when I'm dead and all this. And it's like, okay, you're 25, go for it.
Yeah. I've said that enough times.
Rose Garden Consulting.
Yes.
What do y'all do? And I mean, beyond the tagline, what I said at the beginning, and how did you get there? How did you get to own this company?
So we're basically, we come in, high level strategy, sales function, specifically in sales and exclusive to sales. So we'll come in, we'll build a strategy where you guys should be going. We'll assist with your messaging. We'll assist with the everything that goes into what needs to be said to a prospect, and then also the methods and the tactics that need to be executed in trying to get in front of your prospects, but then also turning those prospects, those people that have raised their hands and said, I'm interested, turn them into cash in your bank account. And so I always say, basically there's really, we're all in the same business. We're in the money business. There's only two problems to the money business. The first one is getting enough people to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested. And the second problem with the money business is getting those people that raise their hands, turning them into cash in your bank account. We do number two very, very well. We will help with number one, but we prefer people that have an established lead flow and just are having trouble converting them. Once we've created that, we systematize that, we document everything. And from there, we'll help you scale your sales team. So if you have 5 salespeople, 3 salespeople, we'll help you take it from 5 to 50. So how can you turn it into a well-oiled machine and get that predictable revenue and predictable closing going?
Is there a specific niche type of company you work with?
I'd say there's probably here's the way I'll answer that question in a roundabout way. Have you watched that movie Dodgeball?
Yeah.
So where they're training. And the coach says, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. You can dodge traffic, you can dodge a ball. That's sales, man. If you can sell one thing, you can sell, right? If you were a successful salesperson at one company but aren't able to sell something else, that's because you're not a good salesperson. There was something unique about that company where you just weren't screwing up those deals, but you're not a good salesperson. Truly great salespeople can sell really anything, because at the end of the day, sales is all about communication, effectively communicating and motivating someone to make a decision. That's all sales really is. And so if you're good at that, doesn't matter what you're selling. That being said, areas we focus and we've niched down into is SaaS companies. A lot of startups, funded startups. So we'll work with them, and then we'll also work with service-based agencies. My background is in insurance sales, so I was the guy that would go door to door selling life insurance. Wow. So I have a really good understanding of how do you sell something so conceptual? How do you sell something that's so not tangible? That's really where we excel. So working with agencies, marketing agencies, ad agencies is something we've done quite a bit of in the past, and that's the kind of work I really enjoy.
And you're headquartered in Atlanta. Are you from Atlanta originally?
I am not. I'm Canadian.
Okay.
Grew up in Canada and moved down to Atlanta 3 years ago because I started my company in Canada for about 4 years. I saw the rest of my life there. People in Canada, some Canadians will probably watch this and yell at me, but just complacency. It's just they don't want to get big enough. I just heard it too many times. I'm happy with where I'm at and I don't really want to grow. And they meant it. It wasn't an excuse. They didn't want to grow. Versus in the States, it's, big is never big enough and they always want to get bigger. Right. And it's just a larger market. So as far as the business culture environment, it just was a better fit for me. So I decided I had to move down here.
Why do you think that is, the complacency versus the gotta grow, gotta get bigger?
It's just the way Americans are bred, right? And this is what people don't understand about, I'm not trying to get political here and everything, but people try and like copy paste, different situations into the States. And it's just like, you don't understand the American market, right? If you were born and raised here and this is all you know, and you don't understand that Americans are probably the most different people in the entire world. As close as we are to Mexico and Canada, those are completely different worlds. Americans, right from a very young age, you have to be the best, you have to be the strongest. It probably started somewhere in the 70s and 80s, when it was USA versus USSR and the Rocky movies. And, Americans just always wanted to beat the Russians. And it's just something... those people that were kids then are now parents and grandparents. And that's just what's, bred through society. Americans are different, completely different than everybody else. It's just there's more hunger, more appetite, and just a deeper killer instinct here than anywhere in the world. I've been out to a lot of places.
Probably goes back to the land rush, the gold rush, after the British, after they left the British, we just had to survive. Because a lot of people don't realize, well, Canada is as well, but the U.S. is relatively young. When I was out in Egypt, And it's funny, I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and we go out and it's so historic and everything's 200 years old, 300 years old. And I go to Egypt. It's like, yeah, this is 6,000 years old. It's
Right.
like,
Exactly.
okay. I get it.
Yeah, totally agree.
So you've run the company, you've had the company since December 2011.
Yep.
Is that right? And so what brought you to starting the company versus what you were doing before?
I mean, if I'm being honest, I got fired from the only job that I was ever good at, and I was like, well, what do I want? So like I mentioned, right? I was the guy that would go door to door selling life insurance. Did that for 4 years. Number one agent in the country. Sold a lot of insurance, and I'm like 22, making 200 plus, living in my parents' basement, right? So I got money to blow. My head slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I start saying some things that I probably shouldn't be saying to some people in management because no one could tell me anything, right? And then eventually I ended up getting fired, right? So I was what was that, like 23, 24 when I got fired, and I was like, well, that's a humbling experience. And I'm like, well, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And I realized that I just didn't want to go to another insurance company because I figured that something like that would probably happen again. And plus I just didn't like the bureaucracy of insurance. So I said, I'm a salesman, let me sell. So originally we started up the company, and what I wanted to do was we outsource sales like a hired gun, right? So you had a product service solution to sell, but you didn't want to run a sales team. You hired us, put us on retainer, and paid us a kicker when we closed the deal. Worked great for about 3+ years. When one of my clients says, well, this is great and all, but you get hit by a bus tomorrow, we're back to square one. I said, yeah, you're right about that. He said, well, why don't you write down what you do for us? I said, well, why don't you pay me for it? Because that wasn't our original engagement. And at that time, surprisingly, he said yes, right? And I was just like, and that's when the light bulb went off. I'm like, wait, hang on. This is infinitely more scalable. People want to own their own pipeline. People want an understanding of how they can scale their business. And for me, it's, like I said, it's infinitely more scalable for me to come in, step by step, this is what you need to do, go do it. And then for me to leave, right? People, the people love the model. I love that model. And that's kind of when we pivoted about, just shy of 4 years ago. And so basically for the past 4 years, that's what we've been doing, is going in and, doing assessments, really understanding what the problems are, and then building a solution and kind of having a project to systematize the strategy and then document it and then walk away from it.
You mentioned that you were number one in sales, door-to-door life insurance, right?
Yeah, I knocked on your door. You had no clue who I was. I had to come in, and within 2 hours, you had to buy some insurance. Then you had to give me your checking account information and your social and all your health records and everything, in 2 hours. And then I was gone, and you never saw me again. There was no such thing as be-backs, right? I mean, if someone said I need to think about it or whatever, come back tomorrow, we knew that was not a deal. So you had to get that deal right on that table right there and then.
What, you get thrown into that. There's a lot of people who would get thrown into that and sink, right? Yeah. They drown. There are some people out there who are good at the lead generation and getting the people in. Closing just can't, I'm good at lead generation. Closing, I'm not a great closer. There's some people who I feel like they walk down the street and people just throw money at them, right? You're going door to door selling life insurance. I can't even fathom doing that, right? What do you think? Do you think there's just like an inherent sales gene that some people have? Or do you think anyone can sell if put in the right position and given the right tools?
I would say it's a third, right? Because put in the right position, given the right tools, I mean, that could be subjective. So I can agree with that depending on the parameters of what we mean by that. So that's why I say I'll give it a third. Is there is no such thing as a born salesperson. The only thing that are born are baby boys and baby girls. Salespeople are trained. And no different than there is, no lawyer gene or doctor gene or a scientist gene. That stuff just doesn't exist. But it's all about training. Some people are more charismatic. They're more people friendly. They're more outgoing. And that's fine, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a great salesperson. A lot of people think like, oh, well, someone is extroverted, they're going to be a great salesperson. No, in sales, you actually find that extroverts don't do very well because they talk too much, Introverts also don't do very well because they don't talk enough, or they're not, they just don't get enough at-bats. They don't say enough of what they need to say. People who do really well are what are called ambiverts, right in the middle. People who, when need to be, are extroverted, when need to be, are introverted. And these are people with high EQ, and they can really read a situation very well. Those are the people that do really well in sales. Why some people tend to believe or see that is we have, when you look at nature versus nurture, I'm a nurture, like without a doubt, right? We're born, we're given a body. That's pretty much about it. The rest, you got to learn. And some people go to schools that have maybe a little bit that gear them a little bit more for public speaking or whatever. And so we might then say, well, that person's a natural born salesperson. That's just not it, because there are rules, it's process, there's tactics, there's things you say, there's things that you don't say. And if you are a true, student of your craft, you will get really, really good at it, regardless of whether you are an extrovert or ambivert or an introvert, because what you will do is you will learn how to model yourself to the particular situation. You will be able to read and then react. So that's all sales is. It's not, it really isn't anything other than that.
So people listening now, if they're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a one-person business and I'm an extrovert or I'm an introvert.
Right.
You can learn to shut it on, shut it off, kind of flip the switch. Absolutely.
It's just, do you want to or not? Right. I mean, it's really just as simple as that. I mean, when you have a thought come in your mind, you're not a squirrel, right? Don't say it. Right. I mean, it's just like, if you've been through enough, or no, you're not a dog who saw a squirrel. That's the one that I meant.
I was wondering that.
Like,
yeah.
But anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like if you have a thought that comes to your mind, you don't have to say everything, right? And if you understand the rules of engagement, you understand what and how you need to sell. And again, it takes practice. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very difficult. But if given the right training, and so you're given the right training, you've been put in enough situations where you've had enough at-bats and you've gone through enough, you're going to burn some. You're going to burn a lot, but you're going to slowly get better and better and better and better. And it's just literally just that simple.
I mentioned to you offline before we started taping that, I've had some clients or known some people that are in a 9-to-5 and they want to jump and make that break to freedom, and they want to start their own company. They want to become entrepreneurs. And the one thing holding them back is sales. Terrified of it. What do you say to someone like that, who just at the very notion of sales they would rather be stuck in a prison, the 9-to-5 prison for the next 20 years rather than go out and live their dream?
Right. I mean, I'm 29, but I'm pretty old school, right? Like I would typically just say nut up, right? I mean, it's just like, that's probably what I'd say. But I mean, realistically, I mean, I think it's there's a saying, it's a line in a rap song by, I think it was Lil Wayne. He's like, be good or be good at it, right? Period. And it's just like, either be so good at what you do and whatever that is that you don't need to sell your services, or understand that you're going to have to sell your services, period. Right. So you're either so good, you're the world's best, where people are going to come to you. So you're, I don't know how good Steve Jobs was at whatever it was that he was good at, but let's just say, right, you're a Steve Jobs level. People are going to come to you and you're not really going to have to sell your situation, and you can just kind of talk, and then they're going to throw money at you. 99.9% of people just aren't that good at whatever it is. And so you're going to have to, I mean, it's a function of if you say, I don't like accounting and I don't like billing people and I don't like invoicing them, it's like, well, how do you expect to run a business? I mean, you're going to have to. Now, on that very notion, it's not hard if you've been given, if you're pointed in the right direction, you're given some good solid advice of what you need to do. The problem, and really what people are afraid of, it's the fear of the unknown. It's because they get into a situation, they're ill prepared, and then they freeze and they don't know what to say. That's what they're really afraid of. I would hazard a guess that if most people were properly prepared, they would not be as scared of selling as they are. So I think it's a function of training and preparation. And again, baby steps, right? You don't have to go in there and pitch a Fortune 500, your very first day, talk to people that and then slowly build up your appetite or your ability to be able to do that.
I gave a talk a few weeks ago and was talking about, it was about purpose-driven storytelling and how, when I first started making videos, and I get a lot of inbound lead generation for my coaching. I was talking about how great my coaching program was, my bells and whistles, my features and all that. And
Right.
like, no one cared. Right. When I started talking about pain, either pain that I had and broke free, I've had clients that had this pain, it made an immediate difference. And when I gave that talk, someone said, really? It's all about the client's pain point. It's all about the client's pain point. And I thought that was somewhat obvious. Certainly I had to learn it, and it's tough when you own your own business because you want to talk about how wonderful you are and all these things you invested in. What do you feel about that in terms of talking about, I'm thinking about Rocky 3 and Clubber Lang. What's your prediction for the fight pain? I don't know why that comes in my head, but really focusing on and finding your customer's pain point and speaking to that versus how wonderful you are and your bells and whistles. What's the fine line there? Or is there a fine line? Does it even matter?
So I would actually, I'd say there is no fine line, but talking about your bells and whistles probably not going to get you anywhere, really anywhere at all. That's that thing that might, tip someone over the edge if they are prepared to buy, but you're never going to get them to that point of wanting to buy unless you are talking about that pain. And to dive a little bit deeper in that, you got to understand from our perspective, we think we're talking about pain a lot, right? From a founder's perspective, from a business owner's perspective, we think we're talking about pain. And I'll put it to you this way. This is the way that I put it to all my clients when we're going through one of our strategy sessions is we're building out how the messaging and how to speak to the personas, right, of their clientele. And so we start talking about pain points, and when I'm trying to list out the pain points, the founder is not mentioning pain points, and there's this disconnect. So you need to understand when these 4 things are the magic things that are going to get you clients, or when you're speaking to people, are really going to make them want to pay attention. There is the pain point, there is the hot button, but there are challenges and there are goals. And we need to understand what each of these 4 are. And let me, so to explain pain and challenges. When an overweight individual goes to a doctor, right, and says, "Doctor, my knee hurts," that knee pain is the pain point. And then the doctor says, "Well, you have knee pain, you need to lose some weight," right? Very, very simple, makes sense, right? You reduce the weight, there'll be less pressure on your knee. Less pressure means less pain, right? We as business owners, we start talking about challenges, and the person is like, "I don't know why you keep talking about these challenges. I'm having these pains." And then there's always a disconnect. You need to understand the difference between a pain and the difference between a challenge. We see challenges, right? Because we solve challenges, which alleviates the pain. The person's not coming to you because of the challenge. The person's coming to you because of the pain. You need to start at the pain and work backwards to the challenge and make them come on this journey with you. And that all is in the messaging. And when you do that, when you start talking about the challenge, that prospect is with you, and now they're wanting to solve that challenge because they know as soon as they solve this challenge, that pain will go away. But they're so fixated on the pain, and we're so fixated on the challenge, and that's where this disconnect comes in. Same, again, on that same vein, understanding the difference between pain point and hot button. A lot of people, when they try and pitch, they think if I can alleviate your pain point, that is your hot button, right? Not true. So, and this is the same example I give to everybody is, okay, my wife, okay? Why did I marry my wife, right? I've got pain points and I got hot buttons with my wife, right? Hot button with my wife, she's foxy, right? Pain point with my wife, she nags me all the time. Hot button with my wife, she's a great cook. Pain point with my wife, she's very controlling, right?
You're going to have some more pain points after she listens to this podcast.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've been married so long, and she knows I can say whatever. But anyways, but here's the point though. Those are not opposites of one another, right? I didn't marry her in spite of one, or it doesn't work that way. It's not that if she would stop being so nagging, that would be, it doesn't work that way. They're not different sides of the same coin. And this is what people don't understand. So when we start talking about pain points, we think this individual's hot button is to make it not be a pain point. Now, that may be, but 9 times out of 10, that's not. They want to alleviate the pain for sure, but their hot button is something else. It's something else that we need to solve for. And that's again, in that messaging and that fine, the subtle nuances that we need to solve for. And that, if you can figure out those 4 things and understand what the categories are, the buckets are, which is the pain point, the challenges, the hot buttons, and the goals, if you can understand what all those mean, and then how to say it back to your prospect in an appropriate way in their local language, you will close way more deals than you're closing right now. I mean, that's pretty simple, but.
Interesting. So going back real quick to the guy who goes to the doctor with the knee pain, right?
Yeah.
That's his pain point. So what would his challenge be? Losing the weight, or
the challenge. So the person that's going to the doctor with the knee pain, the pain is the challenge, or sorry, the knee pain is the pain point. The challenge is the weight.
Okay.
The solution would be to, okay, well, how can I make the challenge not be a challenge anymore? So can I get you eating right? Can I get you exercising more? And what are the steps to getting there, right? I can't just ask you to go and run a triathlon tomorrow. I have to get you, start walking first. But if I'm talking to the challenge, and so this person comes to me about, hey, I've got knee pain, and I start prescribing them and telling them, you need to go to the gym, you need to do this, you need to do that. They're gonna be like, wait, I come to you for knee pain. You're telling me to go to the gym. There's a serious disconnect, and that is why most of our conversations go to hell, is because we think we jump steps, right? Because it's a lot of unconscious competence. We're in the situation every day, so we think people are talking the same way or understanding the same that we think. Not true. So someone comes to us with a branding problem or whatever, right? Instantly we start talking about messaging. We start talking about, someone comes to us with, oh, my website sucks, right? They want a new website. We start talking to them about branding. We start talking to them about messaging. We start talking to them about this, and they're like, man, I just wanted a new website. What is this dude doing, right? He's trying to upsell me, right? That's where the conversation goes to hell. But us as professionals in the marketing and the digital marketing space, we understand that, look, your website, like, anyone can make a pretty page, but can it convert? And is the only way it's going to convert is if we have the right messaging. We need to get the copy. We need to do all this other stuff. But this person that's a novice in this field that doesn't have as much experience as you do, you are playing chess and they're playing checkers, and there's this severe disconnect. And that is when, again, I'm giving very, very simple examples right now, and people are going to be like, well, yeah, Ali, come on, that's obvious. Understand. You would be very shocked how many times you actually start listening to some call recordings, you start analyzing some people's pitch decks, you start looking at some things, and it's chess and checkers.
Interesting. Well, speaking of pain points and challenges, you're coming up on the 7-year anniversary of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Over that 7 years, what has been your number one pain point for yourself, for your own company?
So we actually just solved our biggest pain point a couple months ago with a recent hire, which was delivering. Right, I loved selling. I pitch you a dream. I say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then once you sign on the dotted line, now I got to go deliver it. And again, for me, it was like that was the most painful thing. Like I want to be at the strategic level. I want to be that. So we finally were able to systematize our process and bring in a hire who's now very, very well versed in that area, because that was always the tough thing, is you can't just stick anyone in there. It's got to be someone that really understands sales processes at a granular and a micro level, but then also can take it from the macro and translate it into the micro and get granular with it. So that was always a tough thing that I had to get off my plate. Finally did that. Now I'm at a point where it really is okay. We've got that in place. Now we can hit full throttle and scale. So for me, I'd say my new pain point is marketing, lead gen, getting myself out there. We've got a couple of different strategies that we're about to explore, but thank God the biggest pain we just solved 4 months ago.
So you started your company at about 22, 23 years old?
23, I think.
So if you're speaking to an entrepreneur, whether they're 22, 30, 40, whatever, maybe they're a year into it, 2 years into it, maybe they're just getting ready to start, right? Or they're just getting started. What would be that one nugget of advice you would give to someone in their early entrepreneurship stage for success?
Messaging. I mean, so many people, it's twofold, right? I mean, it's, so many people think what they have is a great idea, and it very well may be, but if you can't communicate it to somebody, doesn't matter. And then also, don't get too fancy with it. You have to just dumb it down for layman's terms. I mean, I get people all the time tell me we're the next this, or we are streamlined operations with data enabled AI this, and I'm like, I don't know what you do, right? Tell me in the simplest words possible what you do. And if you can't do that, no one can buy from you because they don't know what you do. They don't know what they're buying. That's the most important thing, is get your messaging right. And then don't try to do everything all at once. Understand that it's going to be a dog show. It's at the beginning, the first few years, it's just rough. Stop trying to make everything perfect. Just, get one or two deals, really focus on them. Stop trying to automate everything and build everything perfect. Yes, we've all heard, stories about people that are 2-3 years in their business and they've got everything running like a well-oiled machine. It's very, very unlikely that was their first business. I know people that are like that. It's usually their third business, their fourth business, whether the first few shut down, got acquired, exit, whatever the case may be. It's never the first business. So understand that, it is what it is, but don't get too big for your britches trying to do too much all at once and take too many big bites. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Focus on one or two clients, get some money coming in the door. Don't try and scale. Don't try and automate. When Uber first started, they were flying drivers into cities to when you first start, you're going to have to do things that don't scale. Down the line, at some point of critical mass, yes, you're going to have to start refining and scaling, but don't worry about that right now. You don't start thinking of step 10 and you're going to screw up step 2 and you're never going to get there. So one step at a time.
Well, Ali, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciated it. If people want to find you, they listen to this and they're like, man, we got to hire Ali. We got to get a hold of him. Best place for them to find you. And we'll put this in the show notes as well.
Yeah, rosegardenconsulting.com. That's our website. Shoot me an email. I'm very responsive. Ali@rosegardenconsulting.com. That is my actual email. So just hit me up. I'm always happy to help.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
No problem. Thank you so much, brother.
All right, thanks.